Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mataji, if you raise your hand, I can make you a co-host. Okay, so let's go over. Did everyone read the chapter? Did everyone read before they came? Yes? No? Maybe so?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes.
Yes, Mataji.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Very nice. Thank you. So if you didn't read, then Nectar of Devotion is hard to, understand, but it's a very nice book. Okay, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, chapter 15. Let's see. Krishna, mine. Okay. Let's pay our obeisances to Shri Radha Govinda before we proceed. This very, very quick review of what you have been doing. Preface to chapter 1. First, Lahiri. Okay, we are studying which side of Nectar of Devotion. What side of Nectar of Devotion? In first 19 chapters.
Eastern side.
Eastern side. How
Eastern
many waves are there?
4.
4 waves.
What are they? What is the first wave? What is the first wave?
East.
It's here. Samanya Bhakti.
Samanya Bhakti.
Okay, what is the second wave? What is the second wave?
Sadhana Bhakti.
Sadhana Bhakti.
Sadhana Bhakti. What are the two kinds of Sadhana Bhakti?
Vaidhi and Raganuga.
Very nice. Vaidhi and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. What is the third wave? Which Bhakti?
Bhava
Bhava
Bhakti.
What is the
And
fourth
Prem.
wave?
Prem Bhakti.
Prema Bhakti.
Very nice. Thank you. Somebody is understanding. In the beginning of Nectar of Devotion, if you read the introduction, I remember Prabhupada writes, if after reading Nectar of Devotion, if we can make just one sincere devotee of Krishna, we will consider our endeavor as success. It's so difficult to become sincere devotee of Krishna. He writes, you can read in the preface and introduction, Prabhupada writes just one, if only one person can become a pure devotee. Okay, preface to chapter 1, Bhakti Ras, where Prabhupada gives introduction. An introduction of Rupa Goswami Prabhupada and how Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu came about. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu came about how? How? Who is the author of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? Okay, Srila Rupa Goswami, very nice, thank you. And what is the content of Nectar of Devotion or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? What's there, like? Who was teaching who and where? Yes. Yes, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was written by Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada after what? After what happened? Oh, come on, this was discussed in the preface, first class. After what happened?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Haribol.
It's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained about the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, about devotion to the 6 Goswamis. Among them, the important Goswami.
So, Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, you were right, but not to 6 Goswami, but Rupa Goswami where? And for how many days? Where was?
Ghats of Prayag, Mataji.
What is the name? You can say Delhi, but where in Delhi? Prayag is like saying Delhi.
Yes, Mataji, sorry.
It's very good.
Prayag is in Allahabad.
Okay, but which part in Prayag? I know that, but where in Prayag? What ghat?
It's a
Rishi Ghat. Ashwamedh. For how many days? For how many days?
10 days, Mataji.
10 days. Thank God. Well, somebody can connect. Yes, 10 days. Okay, introduction, Mangalacharan and definition of pure devotional service. Anyone remembers the verse of pure devotional service? Anya Bhilashita Shunyam. Anybody remembers the verse? Yes, Mataji, you can unmute yourself. You're a co-host.
Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Nana Karmadi Anavritam, Krishnanushilanam Bhaktiruttamam. Anukulena Krishnanushilanam Bhaktiruttamam.
Very nice. Thank you. Yes, Suma Lata Dubaka Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Anya Vinashita Shunyam. ज्ञानकर्मादि अनावृतम् आनुकूल्येन कृष्णानु शीलिनं भक्तिरुत्तमम्.
Very nice. Yes, Ashutosh Jha Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji.
अन्य विलासिता शून्यम ज्ञान कर्माद्य अनावृतम अनुकूल्येन कृष्णानुशीलनम भक्तिरुत्तमम्.
Very nice. Thank you. So if you study Bhakti Shastri, there are only 3 verses which are supposed to be memorized in Nectar of Devotion. Okay, Nectar of Devotion is a summary study. It's not the whole Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu has 4 Veds, right? There are 4 cantos of the book. Okay, introduction, Mangalacharan and definition of pure devotional service. And then we studied chapter 1, characteristic of pure devotional service. How many characteristics are described? How many characteristics of pure devotional service are described?
6.
Very nice. Thank you. I'm proud of you. Yes. Then second chapter, Sadhana Bhakti. Sorry. Second, oh Krishna, sorry. I have a busy screen. Okay, second chapter to 16th chapter is the second Lahari. First Lahari was Samanya, was just in preface to introduction and chapter 1. Second Lahari is chapter 2 to chapter 16. And in this, we have 2 divisions, chapter 2 to 14, where Vedehi Sadhana Bhakti, and it's how many rules and regulations? How many rules and regulations of Vedehi Sadhana Bhakti? You have been studying and you finished last week till chapter 14. How many rules and
64.
regulations?
64.
64. Each and every. Yes, thank you very much. And now chapter 15 and 16 is Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So today we will start our journey for Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Chapter 2 gives the principles of Sadhana Bhakti. Principles of Sadhana Bhakti, 3 categories of devotional service are described. Anybody remembers what are the 3 categories of devotional service? 3 categories of devotional service are described. Same thing we have been talking, we already said it before. 3 categories, what are they?
Raganuragas.
In practice, in ecstasy, and in pure love of Godhead.
What is the first one?
Devotional service in practice, Mataji.
Practice. Very nice. Sadhana Bhakti, Bhav Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti.
Prema Bhakti.
Yes. Very nice. Thank you. Okay, chapter 3, eligibility for accepting devotional service. And chapter, if I ask, maybe I should ask, what is eligibility? Okay, pure devotional service is free from desire for liberation and sense gratification. Then chapter 5, devotional service, pure devotional service is self-sufficient as independent. It doesn't depend on anything. It doesn't depend on pious birth, doesn't depend on purification through Vedic ritual, doesn't depend on Varnashram Dharma, nothing, nothing, nothing. Okay, and then chapter 6, ways to practice devotional service. Rupa Goswami Prabhupada mentions 64 items of devotional service. Then chapter 7, we discuss first 18 items with 10 do's and 8 don'ts. So 10 do's, Pravarti Marg, and 8 don'ts. Out of which, how many are considered most, like, tell me the number, you don't have to tell me the details. So we are studying about 10 do's. Good. And what is the most important of the 5, which is the first one?
Chanting of the holy name.
And
Sadhu Sangha.
Reading
Hearing.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
accepting a spiritual master. Accepting a spiritual, very nice. Very nice. Those are right, but then there's something like you can subdivide, go more detail. Chapter 8, only 19th element was described. And it's a very difficult chapter. Chapter 8 is a very dangerous chapter. And we discuss about offenses that one need to avoid. Chapter 9, 20 to 42 of the 64 Angas of Bhakti were described. Chapter 10, 43 to 46. And then chapter 11, 47 to 53. And chapter 12, 54 to 64. Okay, and then chapter 13 is the 5 most potent practices of devotional service. One has to remember all these 5. Right? Chapter 14, relation of devotional service to other spiritual practice. Okay, today's chapter name is called Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, or we start our journey, and it's called as spontaneous devotional service. Spontaneous. What is happening here? Okay, I know Krishna is coming, Yashoda Mother is standing, and Nand Maharaj is standing, but what is the pastime? What's happening? I mean, he's coming and they're waiting, but what time of the day it is? What is happening? Yes, anyone who has read Krishna book will be able to answer. What's happening? What is happening? What time of the day it is? And what is happening?
Hare Krishna, I think Gopashtami.
Kalinga, Kalinga Sarp, he.
No. That's on the banks of Yamuna. It's the evening time when Krishna comes back home. This is how he is welcomed. He comes back home after, see, he has a calf. So he comes back home and everyone, all the mothers are standing with their fruits and butter and everything. And his parents are standing, waiting for him to come. Okay, spontaneous devotional service, Raga Nuga Bhakti. It's a very detailed chapter. We are just going to do the overview of the chapter. So you get some, if you have read and come, then it is going to serve a lot of purpose. If you have not read, then you're going to go back and read, then you'll have some background. So spontaneous devotional service is called Ragatmika Bhakti. So if you do the meaning of the word Rag Anuga, Anuga means subordinate. It's subordinate. Raga means mellow or taste. Okay, so that bhakti which is subordinate to the taste of one's relationship to Krishna. Okay, that's Rag Anuga Bhakti. So that's the meaning of the word Rag Anuga. Okay, now Rag Anuga Sadhana Bhakti is different than Ragatmika Bhakti. Rag Anuga Sadhana Bhakti, which I will describe. Let's go. I don't want to. So what is it? Attachment of the residents of Vrindavan for Krishna and embodies perfection of spontaneous love for Krishna. So see, Ragatmika Bhakti is spontaneous. There is no rule and regulation. Already the devotees have gone through the rules and regulation, have come to the conclusion of rules and regulations and have developed a spontaneous attraction for Krishna. Remembering Krishna is not a work for them. Remembering Krishna is their natural constitutional position. And so is ours actually. So is ours. Remembering Krishna is our natural situation, but we have forgotten that. So how is it different from Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti? Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is the practice of devotee who aspires to develop devotional mood of Ragatmika Bhakti. So what happens is when somebody is doing Vaidehi Sadhana Bhakti, following rules and regulations very sincerely and trying to worship the deity, following all the angas of bhakti, then what happens at point comes where they develop spontaneous attraction to the practice of devotional service. And in the spontaneous attraction, the devotee, the theory for me too, the devotee is able to understand that I am attracted to this element of devotional service. Let's say I'm attracted to Krishna as a friend. That is my natural attraction. You know, I go to do the deity worship, I cook for Krishna, I do this, I do that. But my mood is that I'm going to feed my friend, or if my mood is that I'm going to feed my child, or my mood is that I'm going to feed my lover, or my serv or my master, like that. So because of the thorough practice, and of course by the mercy factor of the parampara and the spiritual master, one understands that, oh, this is my natural inclination. So what happens in that natural inclination? One is attracted to a pure devotee who has achieved perfection of that inclination. So if somebody is worshipping Krishna and their natural inclination, so this is different from the fanatism of the mind, because some people say, oh, Krishna is my son, Krishna is my friend. No, not like that. This is a very highly elevated stage. Their life is completely in unison with Krishna's service. So what happens is that devotee now aspires, let's say Arjun. So Arjun is the best friend of Krishna, right? Krishna says, you're my best friend. So, and you're not envious. So somebody who is worshipping Krishna and understands that I worship Krishna in the mood of a friend, then they try to aspire that for a devotee who has developed that perfection, that mood of perfection. Let's say Arjun. So they try to understand that what is Arjun doing? Or Mother Yashoda, if somebody is attracted to Krishna in the mood of a mother or a father, then they try to understand that, and they're trying to understand that how is Mother Yashoda and Nand Maharaj worshipping Krishna. So Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is a practice of devotee who aspires to develop the devotional mood of Ragatmika Bhakti. So they naturally try to follow the footsteps of a devotee who is already on the Ragatmika platform. Understood or complex? This is a little complex topic, but understood so far? Yes or
Mataji.
no?
Yes,
Yes.
Mataji.
Thank you.
You can raise your hand in the middle if you don't understand. Okay. So main criteria for Ragatmika Bhakti, it is spontaneous and it is devotional. Okay, it is an obsession with pleasing Krishna. This is obsession that I don't care. You know, like gopis, like Krishna is playing the flute. Basically, he's beckoning all of them, right? He's calling everyone, then come, come, come. So they didn't care what were they doing or what are obligations they have, but there was an obsession to please Krishna. So that obsession pulled them towards Krishna. That's Ragatmika Bhakti, perfection of the conjugal love. So there is this chapter in Chaitanya Chaitamrita called Madhya Leela 22nd chapter, pure devotional service. This is a chapter where pure devotional service, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhupada is explaining in very intricate detail that what is this pure devotional service. I've taken only few excerpts just to elaborate and make everyone understand what is the difference between Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti and Ragatmika Bhakti. The original inhabitants of Vrindavan are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. Nothing can compare to such spontaneous devotional service, which is called Ragatmika Bhakti. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of devotees of Vrindavan, his devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti. Okay, so I did a mistake then, because over here it is written that when a devotee follows in the footsteps of devotees of Vrindavan, so only in Vrindavan Ragatmika Bhakti is going on. So Arjun, then we have to take example of friend like Madhumangal or Sudama, like those Gopas. So because they are the devotees of Vrindavan. So this is a very specific line, devotees of Vrindavan, one has to follow. So Brajdham. And in Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhupada continues, an advanced devotee is attracted by the service rendered by an eternal servitor of the Lord. See, that's an attraction. It's not that there's envy. You see, I was listening to Prabhupada yesterday. He was explaining what is the difference between material world and spiritual world. What is the difference? The difference is in the material world, if somebody is more superior to us, somebody has more possessions than us, you know, somebody has something which I don't have and I want to have that, then there is an element of envy. There's an element of, you know, repulsion. And in spiritual life, if somebody is a better devotee of Krishna, then the other devotee feels very happy, that see how they are able to render devotional service to Krishna, because it's not so much about themselves, it's about Krishna. It's like, okay, I'm not able to make Krishna happy, but somebody is. So I'm happy that somebody is able to make Krishna happy with such a sincerity of the heart. So that advanced devotee who's practicing Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is attracted by service rendered by an eternal servitor of the Lord. This attraction is called spontaneous attraction. Technically, it is Swarup Uplabdhi. Right now, this is a different subject matter. I don't want to go in detail, but Bhakti Vinod Thakur, up to the time of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, we hear Swarup Upalabdhi. Like some sampradayas in Bengal used to initiate, and the guru used to tell, this is your, you know, Swarupa. But from the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, so many Sahajiya Bhaktas or so many false pretenders came up, so he stopped it. But technically, this is Swarupa Upalabdhi. This stage is not achieved in the beginning. In the beginning, one has to render service strictly according to the regulatory principles set forth by the revealed scriptures and the spiritual master. By continuously rendering service through the process of Vedai Bhakti, one's natural inclination is gradually awakened, and this is called spontaneous attraction or Raganuga Bhakti. Is it clear? This is just a repetition of what we are doing. Is it clear or not? Or if it is not clear, then
Yes.
raise your hand.
Yeah.
Clear?
Yes, Mataji, it is
Yeah.
clear.
So this is a very nice topic of discussion, and there's so many angles of it. Devotional service and spontaneous love is vividly expressed and manifested by the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Devotional service that accords with their devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti, or devotional service following in the wake of spontaneous loving service. So nice, right? So the devotional service, when one is rendering devotional service out of that natural affection, what is my real relationship with Krishna and Golok Vrindavan? And I serve Krishna with that emotion, that bhava, This is just short of Bhava Bhakti. This Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is just short of Bhava Bhakti. It's explained like, when the sun is going to come out, the morning, the sky appears crimson colored. So the horizon, there's some little bit of a light, but also there's a little bit of a darkness. It's like that. Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is like that. And Bhava Bhakti is like, okay, the sun comes out. So we can say. So it's just short of Bhava Bhakti. So there are two processes by which one may execute this Raganuga Bhakti, external and internal. When self-realized, the advanced devotee externally remains like a neophyte and executes all shastric injunctions, especially those concerning hearing and chanting. But within his mind, in his original purified self-realized position, he serves Krishna and Vrindavan in his particular way. He serves Krishna 24 hours a day, all day and night. Prabhupada gives his example like that, right? That's why he's called Acharya. Externally, Prabhupada is chanting his Gayatri, Prabhupada is chanting his rounds, Prabhupada is, dressed as a sannyasi, Prabhupada is talking about Krishna. So that's external, but then he's behaving like, okay, you should do like this, you should behave like this. But internally, his connection with Krishna is on a different level, which if you read books by initial devotees of Prabhupada, how they interacted with Prabhupada, you will understand Prabhupada's mood internally a little bit. Plus, Prabhupada reveals his mood many times in Srimad Bhagavatam also. He gives us that glimpse. Prabhupada wrote this book, Renunciation Through Wisdom. So in that book, he says, the mood of surrender during the stage of Videhi Bhakti, devotional service under strict rules and regulation, is different from that of Raganuga Bhakti stage, spontaneous devotional service. So that's the mood is different. In spontaneous stage, the mood of surrender is the natural expression of the self. When the process of surrender is followed step by step, one patiently executes the Lord's order and gradually becomes enthusiastic. Such a person follows the regulatory principles of hearing, chanting, remembering, and so on, and emulates previously saintly preceptors. In the association of devotees, he becomes more and more proficient in rendering devotional service. Gradually, his service becomes easier. Thus, constant remembrance of the Lord comes simply by developing enthusiasm and patience in devotional activities. So basically, the most important element of this paragraph is association of devotees. Okay, in the association of devotees. If I don't have an association of devotees, it is very hard to practice devotional service. I'm sitting in Gitanagri. I came here 2 days ago and I can already see a difference in my consciousness that how I was when I was in the house and how I am when I'm living with the devotees for the last 2 days. Very different. Because over here, everyone have the same consciousness that we have to serve Krishna, we have to serve Radha Damodar, we have to take care of their cows, we have to do this. Okay, it's Aarti time. Okay, 11:30 in the house is different, and 11:30 in the temple means offering of the Rajbhog to the deities. So it's very much needed. If you don't have an association, then seek one, because without association, we can't progress. Prabhupada said this in lecture, and I really love this. Prabhupada explains it in one go. Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, 33rd verse, in Vrindavan in 1972. The more you are engaged in devotional service, the more your senses becomes pure or uncovered. And when it is completely uncovered without any designation, then you are capable to serve Krishna. Okay, so this is what happens. That the more, for example, I'll give you an example and then you tell me whether you understand or not. The things are there, right? The things are there. When I was a child or when you were a child, the things were there. The sun was rising, the day was going through, the cars were running, everything, the school was going, right? But as we grew and as we gained knowledge, went to school, college, and acquired experience, the same things which were there 20 years ago, 30 years ago, make more sense today, right or wrong? Become uncovered, right or wrong?
Very right, Mataji.
Yes,
Right.
Mataji.
Very
Or
true.
your own job if you're working. Remember the day you joined the job, and remember 5 years into job, 10 years into job, or 15 years into job, it becomes easier, right? As you grow with
Yes,
your
Mataji.
profession. Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
Mataji.
Yes,
Yes,
Mataji.
Mataji.
So
My
like
learning is
that,
focus.
like that, in devotional service, the more we get engaged in the service, It's not about talking, it's just not about talking. There is a word called service, and service means activity. So when we are engaged in devotional service, according to the rules and regulation, the more our senses become uncovered. The more you look at yourself in the mirror, the more you know that what you are not and what you are. And this is what you do. Like, okay, the more you eat, the more you know. My Guru Maharaj was telling me, one devotee asked him, what is the difference between eating Mahaprasadam and eating home food? What is the difference? It's food. Okay, I don't find a difference. What is the difference? So my spiritual master said, ready to hear the answer? He said, well, even if you have tasted Mahaprasadam once in your life, human life, next life, becoming a human being is guaranteed. You're guaranteed that you will not become an animal. That is the potency of the spirit of the Mahaprasadam given to a living entity. Once, even a little bit. Okay. So the more you get engaged in the service, the devotion, the more your senses become purer, uncovered. And when it is completely uncovered without any designation, so what is that? Sarva upadhi vinirmuktam. When all the upadhis are gone. And what upadhis? You should listen to Prabhupada's series of lecture, third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 26th chapter. I'm listening to the series nowadays. Prabhupada explains that 24 elements, especially verse 11 is difficult, that how one is designated and how the soul is so covered with these 24 elements, which give rise to 84 million species of life from 24 elements. So without any designation, when we become free from all these designations, then you are capable to serve Krishna. See, even if I'm engaged in devotional service, I'm still not serving Krishna. I'm practicing to serve Krishna. This is called apprenticeship. Vedai Bhakti, that is apprenticeship. Real Bhakti, Para Bhakti, that is Raganuga Bhakti. This Raganuga Bhakti, we have to come after surpassing Vedai Bhakti. In the material world, if we do not try to make further and further progress in devotional service, if we are simply sticking to the Shastric regulations, process, and do not try to go beyond that, Shastric process, also regulation that is required. Without Shastric process, you cannot go to that platform. So go beyond the Shastric regulation by following the process. If I am fanatically saying that, oh, I have become so good, then what is the evidence? Because it's a PhD subject matter, right? So what's the evidence? This is a very nice chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, first chapter, verses 30 and 31. Narad Muni is speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj. This whole Narad Muni speaks. So what is he speaking? So gopis, that's the evidence. Gopis came to Krishna, we can say out of lust. Okay, we'll understand that. Kansa came to Krishna because of fear. Shishupal came to Krishna because of envy. Yadus came to Krishna because of familiarity or family. Pandavas came to Krishna because of friendship. All had same designation. But how can Kansa and gopis have the same designation or destination? Sorry. Gopis are coming out of love for Krishna. Kansa is coming out of fear. Shishupal is coming out of envy. Yadus out of family affection. Pandavas out of friendship. But everyone got same destination. How? Well, there is a difference. There's a little bit difference. Everyone is allowed to enter the spiritual world, but not everyone is allowed to enter the inside of the Goloka Vrindavan. Some people stopped at the outside. Prabhupada writes that there is a difference between going to a king's palace and going to king's kingdom. Can you relate? Like there's a difference that I went to the kingdom of a king versus I went to the palace of the king. Can you relate to that? What I'm saying? Everyone awake?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Like that. So Kansa, Shishupal, they just went to the king's kingdom or just the impersonal effulgence. They just merged in the Brahmajyoti. But gopis, Yadavas or Pandavas, they went to Bhagwan designation or went to the palace of the king or Goloka Vrindavan. Or the other analogy given is sun globe and sunshine, right? Sunshine is compared to what? What aspect of realization? Sunshine is compared to
Brahman.
Brahman.
Brahman, and sun globe is
Yes.
compared to
Paramatma.
Paramatma. Very
You.
nice. Very nice. So entering the kingdom and king's palace is what I said. Or Brahmanda Puran confirms this. And 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, 87 chapter verse 23, personified Vedas which are praying to Krishna also confirm this, the same thing. Okay, so now we come to 5 types of Ragatmika Bhakti. Is the difference between Raganuga and Ragatmika clear? Okay, let me ask a reverse question. If you have a doubt about difference between Raganuga and Ragatmika Bhakti, Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti and Ragatmika Bhakti, please raise your hand. If you have not understood the difference, I will be happy to explain. Okay, so Ragatmika Bhakti is of 5 kinds. Okay, one is coming to Krishna or realizing Krishna, spontaneous devotional service to Krishna out of sensual attraction to Krishna. That is lust, right? Or relation to Krishna in Sambandha Rupa. And that's another relationship. So why is it compared to lust? There's a little bit of a discussion about it, that why are we saying it is a lust? Actually, we are in material world, we don't know what's what. We get the slightest hint of intensity in gopis' desire to serve Krishna. The word lust is used because so that we can understand that how intense the love of gopis for Krishna was. A little bit, it's the slightest hint. If I am lusty to acquire something, then I become very obsessive about it. Like I only think about it, I only plan about it, I don't hear anything, I don't see anything. Right? Like for example, if I want to buy the car, or if you have that experience in your life, then all you think is, I want that thing. That desire, or I want iPad Pro. That's all, right? That's all we're meditating. Right or wrong?
Yes.
Externally, there may be so many other engagements and so many other things, but inside is that, or I want to go to I want to travel to Switzerland, or I want to travel, or I want to go to, I don't know, whatever country you will say. So this thing comes, right, that we may be engaged in so many things externally, but internally there is this burning fire that when will I do that? How will I do that? So that way the word lust is used to compare gopis' love for Krishna. Okay, so we get this hint. And lust is an intense thirst to satisfy the senses. Sorry. By comparing with our lust, we can see how gopis had most consuming and overwhelming urge to please Krishna. That is why they have used the word lust. What is the difference from our lust? I have the same, we have the same desire. Atmendra Tivancha Tarunam Kam. Whatever I want to do, I want to satisfy my desire. That's lust. Whatever. Prabhupada says you want to eat kachori from the market, that's lust. Or whatever, like, people nowadays, I see that they post that, okay, they've acquired so much money by Krishna's mercy. Now they are posting pictures of this vacation, that vacation. That's lust if it is not connected to Krishna. But I'm not criticizing, but just reiterating. What is the difference? Iron and gold. That as the differences between the iron and gold. So my lust is iron, and the lust of gopis for Krishna is like a gold. And the difference is in the motivation. What's motivating, right? Only to please Krishna. Gopis are only living to please Krishna. Proof that gopis' love is not lust. Great devotees like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Uddhava are certifying that gopis' love is the highest. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sannyasi. Sannyasis don't do anything with women. He would not even let any woman come near him. Far away, they would pay obeisances. But he said that the gopis' love for Krishna is the best. And there's this lady called Kubja. So is Kubja same as gopis? There's a little discussion. No, because almost her mundane or almost like gopis. So her affection for Krishna is called Kama Priya, because she had some desire to satisfy herself. Not so. Yes, she wanted to satisfy Krishna too, but not 100% just Krishna. There was some satisfaction of the self there too. Okay, the other kind of Ragatmika Bhakti is relationship based, which is example is Vrishnis, which they were attracted to Krishna because Krishna is their family. And Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna out of being her son. So that's relationship based. Okay, so that is what this chapter is, Ragatmika Bhakti. Can I play one video of Prabhupada before we hear today's thing?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, yes.
Okay, let's see then.
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you. I don't know how much time because I didn't take this class for many days, so I don't know how much time is given to me. Let's see this.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam. For sense enjoyment, I have got this now body, Indian body.
Sorry, I just want to make it full screen.
I've got this Australian or American or European body. But you have to change this body. Tatha dehantara prapti. We are eternal. Najayate namriyate va kadachit. The soul does not take birth, neither it dies. We simply change body. Tatha dehantara prapti. Just like we are changing our body. In mother's womb, we had a small body. It grows, and we come out. Again it grows. Grows, it is not actually growing, it is changing. The child is changing his body to baby, the baby is changing his body to boy, and the boy is changing his body to youthhood. Then, in this way you are changing body. That you have got experience. You had a child's body, you remember. Or you had a boy's body, you remember. But the body is no longer existing. But you are existing. Therefore, the conclusion is that when this body will be no more fit for existing, we shall have to accept another body. This is called tatha dehantara prapti. So we have to change. That is nature's law. The soul is immortal. Najayate namriyate va kadachit. Na hannate hannamane sarire. The soul is not finished. Simply a particular type of body being finished. No. The people do not know it. And because they are simply engaged in sinful activities, their brain has become so dull that they cannot understand this simple truth, that as you are changing body in this life, therefore you will change this body to another life. This is very simple truth. But at the advancement of material civilization, we have become so dull and rascal that we cannot understand. But India is still, although it is so fallen, you go to a remote village, a common man, he has no education, he believes. He believes. And here, in the Western countries, I saw many big professors, they have no idea. I met one big professor, Kotovsky, in Moscow. He said, Swamiji, after finishing this body, everything is finished. You see, he is a big professor and in charge of a very big department, Indology. He has no idea. But this is not the fact. The fact is that we are all sparks, spiritual spark, part and parcel of God. Somehow or other, we have come into this material world for sense enjoyment. In the spiritual world, there is no sense enjoyment. There is sense purification. In the material world, the senses are impure. They simply want to enjoy material things. So Krishna consciousness means that you have to purify your senses. That is the way. Sarvapadhi vinirmuktam tatparatena nirmalam. Rishikena rishikesa sevanam bhakti ruchyate. This bhakti means that we have to clear ourselves from the designations. What is that designation? Everyone is thinking, I am American, I am Indian, I am European, I am Australian, I am cat, I am dog, I am this, I am that, bodily. We have to cleanse this bodily conception of life, that I am not this body. Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit soul. This you have to realize. Then there will be no distinction that here is an American, here is an Australian, here is a Hindu, here is a Muslim, here is a tree. Here. No. Pandita Samadarshina. Pandita means learned, one who knows things as they are. For them, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Suniche cha Sapake cha Pandita Samadarshina. A person very learned, Vidya, and very gentle. Vidya means, educated means he is gentle, sober. He is not rogues and ruffian. That is Vidya. That is the taste of education. He must be very educated, sober and silent. That is called gentleman in one word.
So nice, right? Prabhupada is so nice. Okay, Mataji, if you have any questions about chapter 15, we'll take it at the end. Let's hear Sunita Mataji. Mataji, if you can turn on your camera, I can make you this, I can put the spotlight on you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Chinnaswami Prabhuji.
Do I have to make someone else co-host?
Yes, Mataji, for Chinnaswami Prabhuji to introduce the same.
Ganeshan Chinnaswami Prabhu. Okay, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna everyone.
Well, Dharan Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Can we share the presentation?
Yeah, 1 second, 1 second.
Meanwhile, any devotees having any doubt on the chapter what we have read can ask Prema Mataji.
I think let's wait on that. Let's
Hare
give them
Krishna.
the time.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yes. Today we are going to have the presentation on a wonderful topic, the relationship between Jiva, Ishvara and Prakriti. It's going to be presented by Sunita Arvind Mataji.
Thank you, Ganeshan Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, everyone. My humble obeisances to Radha Govinda and all Guru Parampara. Before we understand the relationship between Jiva, Ishvara and Prakriti, we must understand what is Jiva, Ishvara and Prakriti. So there are 5 elements: Prakriti, Ishvara, Jiva, Kala and Karma. Among 5, I'm going to discuss today about the relationship between Jiva, Ishvara and Prakriti. These are the references I have taken from Bhagavad Gita and Brahma Samhita. Bhagavad Gita is an ideal teaching book for all humanity, taught by the greatest teacher to his student Arjuna for the transmission to all humans or embodied souls who are uninformed, unaware, ignorant and errant and need to be instructed in their essential nature and the purpose of human existence. The Lord discusses these points besides many others. Okay, now the Supreme Personality of Godhead has 3 primary energies. Jiva is the marginal energy or the Tatastha energy of the Lord, and Jiva is called as Anu, that is atomic, because he is a living soul, and Jiva is controlled by Supreme Personality of Godhead and is situated between internal and external potencies of the Lord. And next is Ishvara. Ishvara is the supreme controller. In Sanskrit, Ishvara is called as Vibhu, that is omniscient, and he is Bhagavan with all his 6 bhagas or qualities: knowledge, riches, strength, beauty, fortune, and renunciation. He is Atma Rama, who is self-satisfied and doesn't need anyone or anything to satisfy him, and he is undisturbed by sinful, pious activities. He doesn't create particular situation for any living entity, but he is constant and the companion of the living entity as Paramatma, or the super soul. And Prakriti. Prakriti, it is the material energy of the Lord, and it is material manifestation, and it is controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 3 Vishnu forms of the expansion of Lord Krishna. First one is Mahavishnu, that is Karnodaka Sai Vishnu, creates the total material energy known as Mahatattva that creates innumerable universes. Second one is Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, enters into all universes and to create diversities in each of them. And the third one is Shirodaka Sai Vishnu, is diffused as all-pervading super soul in all universe and known as Paramatma, who is present even within atoms and enters the hearts of all living beings. Lord Krishna is the original cause of material manifestation. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this. Energies of the Lord always controlled by the energetic, that is Supreme Lord. They have no independent existence and they are never equally powerful. Thus the living entity are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, and they are the eternal fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, but they are never equal to Lord in quantity of power. Example, ocean water taken in a bowl can't be compared with the ocean itself. Achintya Bheda, Abheda Tattva, that is simultaneously one and different. This superior energy of Lord, that is living entity, when it comes into contact with the inferior energy, it will get contaminated. And when it is revived of its dormant Krishna consciousness through its devotional services, the superior energy, that is the living entity, will come in contact with the internal or the spiritual energy of the Lord and gets purified of its contamination. And they display their natural constitutional activity, namely constant engagement in devotional services of the Lord. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita 9.13, and they can finally attain the love of Krishna, God. Under the spell of ignorance, the living entity, these are the references from 5th chapter. Under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditioned existence. Vedanta Sutra confirms this. Vaishamya Naigranyena Sapekshatvat Tathahi Dashyati. The Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, though he appears to. And the living entity constitutes of matter and spirit. In the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, gross, 5, and 3 subtle. The gross 5 are sky, air, fire, water, and earth, and the 3 subtle are mind, false ego, and intelligence. It's because of this false ego, I am and its mind, which constitutes the basic principle of material existence, includes 5 senses, sensory this thing, then Gnanendriyas and 5 Karmendriyas. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy of the Lord, the superior energy forgets its real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of the matter upon living entity. When he becomes free from that, he attains the stage called mukti or liberation. And there is no truth superior to the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord Krishna is absolute truth. It is confirmed in Gita at every step. All beings are in me. All beings are in me. Next slide. Previous slide, Prabhuji, ninth one. In this 9th chapter, Krishna says, all living beings are in me, but I am not in them. He is the maintainer, sustainer of all material manifestation, and by his will, anything is created, sustained, and annihilated. And the material nature is working under his direction, that he says, Mayadhyakshena. By its rule, its manifestation and it is manifested and created and annihilated again and again. The Father, just as the Father gives the seeds to womb of mother, similarly the Supreme Lord, by his mere glance, injects all living entity into the womb of material nature. They come out in their different form and species according to their last desires and activities. Lord is not directly attached to this material creation and is detached from all this material creation. Here Lord says, I envy no one and nor am I partial to anyone. Here we can see the reciprocal relationship between the devotee and the Lord. That is, whoever surrenders to me, proportionately, I take care of him. This is not a discrimination. Actually, this is the transcendental reciprocation of the Lord that exists between the devotee and the Lord. Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. This is the manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to the devotees. The Lord's reciprocation shouldn't be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to transcendental situation in which Lord and devotees function. Next slide, please. In 10.10, in the 10th chapter, 10.9 shloka is very important. Machita madgata prana bodhayantaha parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti charamanti cha. Here Krishna says, it is Krishna who instructed Brahma in the beginning in Vedic knowledge, and then the Supreme Personality Narayana desired to create living entities. The pure devotees always have Krishna within his heart, and he is just the sun that dissipates the darkness of ignorance. And this is a special mercy tendered to a pure devotee by Krishna. As the Lord takes charge, one becomes completely free from all kinds of materialistic endeavors. Next slide, please. In 13th chapter, Krishna says, you should understand that I am also the knower of all bodies, and to understand this body and its owner is called the knowledge. That is, knowledge is equal to Kshetra plus Kshetrajna. Body is Kshetra, are the field of activities. And owner of the body, two souls, that is individual soul and the super soul, Paramatma. Finite enjoyer and the infinite enjoyer. Krishna is the knower, but not the individual owner of the body, and he is present in every body as Paramatma or the super soul. Both material nature and living entities are the eternal. Due to the association with the three modes of nature, living entity is put into different bodies, that is, transmigrates from one body to another, just as one changes dress. This change of dress is due to his material existence, and living entity thinks himself to be the master of his circumstances. Living entity continually rejecting the association of spiritual light, that is, a super soul residing in his heart. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife in the conditioned nature. Next slide, Prabhuji. In this 15.7 shloka is important. Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana mana shashtanindriyani prakriti sthanika shati. According to Vedic version, Supreme Lord manifests or expands himself in the primary expansion called Vishnu Tattva, that is personal, and secondary expansion called living entities, which is separated expansion of the Lord. This separated expansion eternally servitors, that those living entities are servitors of the Lord, as fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Living entity also have the fragmental qualities of which independence is one, but by the misuse of this, it becomes conditioned soul. But by the proper use of this, it can become liberated. As a conditioned soul, one forgets the transcendental loving service to the Lord and has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world. He is bound up by the false ego, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in the material existence, depending on the three gunas, that is Sattva, Raja and Tamas. And thus the conditioned soul is covered by material body with the mind and senses. The Supreme Lord gives the knowledge in the form of Veda. He is worshipable by the conditioned soul. Not only living entities enjoys or suffers in this world according to dictation from the Supreme Lord, situated locally in heart, but receives the opportunity to understand Vedas from him. And the purpose of Veda is to understand Krishna. That is, Vedas sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smriti gnanam apohanam cha Vedas sarve rahameva vedyo vedanta krudveda videva chaham. As all the living entities are directed by the super soul, living entity gets what he deserves. And the living entity is not independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is always under his control. Therefore, it is the duty of a devotee to living entity to surrender to the Lord. In 13.22, Krishna says again, he who knows the Purusha, Prakriti with its guna, even if engaged in all types of activities, will not take birth again in this material world. Body is called Kshetra. Within it dwells the owner of the body, that is soul or Kshetrajna, and the super soul who knows both the body and the owner of the body. Kshetra plus Kshetrajna. Therefore, it is called as knower of all fields. One has to understand the position of Prakriti and Purusha, the enjoyer, and the Ishvara, the super knower who dominates and controls the nature and individual soul. In Vedic language, it is stated that there are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti as a Brahman, the field of activities, and Jiva is also Brahman, who is trying to control the material nature, and Ishvara, super soul, he is also the controller of, he is also Brahman, who is the controller of both of them, but he is the factual controller. Of the two knowers, one is fallible and another one is infallible, and one is subordinate, another one is superior. Ishvara is the supreme controller of both the fields of activities and fruitive enjoyer, that is Prakriti and Jiva respectively. Thank you very much. I would like to thank all my teachers for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And I would like to thank all teachers, Namanishta Prabhu, and Dr. Aishwarya Subhadra Devi Dasi Mataji, Dr. Prema Kishori Devi Dasi Mataji, and everyone, and all my team members to support me in this regard. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Can you go to the third slide? Oh, you took the slides out. Can you share the slides? Mataji, very nice presentation. It's a very detailed topic. You did a thorough research. I guess you have a good team. Very good expression of the topic. For how long you have been in Krishna consciousness, if I may ask?
1.5 years, Mataji.
Oh, I should. Oh, so only 1.5 years?
Yes, Mataji.
You're showing a very good understanding. Thank you.
Thank you very much,